Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me enormous pleasure to welcome Sebastian Sylwan. We call him Seb. The industry knows him as the venerated Seb. And it's wonderful to have him virtually in front of all of us here at the very first VAM event. VAM being VFX and more. And when Animation Express and the organizing team and the advisory board sat down and we wanted to see how do we kick this off, we said, guess what? The future is now. And there's no one better to talk about how the future becomes now than Seb. You know, he's this industry veteran that has straddled the world from Italy and US and New Zealand and Canada. And I guess his multicultural, multi-technology experience is what's going to be on in evidence tonight for all of you to take away something from his journey across Weta and Autodesk and digital domain and the wonderful studio that he started up in Montreal before he was lassoed into this fantastic role to look at software for the future and research at Technicolor's studios, which encompass obviously, as you know, MPC and the Mill and Mr. X and things that are evident over my left shoulder. So without further ado, I can't wait to tap into this phenomenal brain for this conversation. And Seb is influential in our community as the chair of the technology committee of VES, and all of us who are in the visual effects world know the influence and the community that is VES. You know, it's just that very powerful bond of professionals in technology and creativity making the future. So Seb, if I might kick off, and please feel free to take this wherever you want, but you know, I wanted to really kick this off saying, what do you see as the next generation of tool sets? You know, especially today when the studio has become remote in 2020, the ways in which we work have asked us to employ new ways to enable this creative collaboration that we were used to standing next to each other and looking over each other's shoulders. And what will the studio look like in the future? Will this model scale? Will it be a hybrid? And what are you looking at and believing will be that next thing?
First of all, thank you for the welcome and the kind words. I was feeling slightly old when you were presenting me, but I guess it comes with the territory. So the next generation toolset. So I guess content creation in general is it's been said that film is the most collaborative art form, right? And so that I think is true for all of content creation, especially nowadays. And I think that the where we are is at a place, and where COVID caught us was actually at a place in which we were starting to get there and starting to get to using digital tools in a way in which they would really enable us to leverage the collaboration across sites and places, etc. And it gave us a big jolt to say, okay, now accelerate that. What you were aiming to achieve maybe in 2 to 5 years, you need to achieve in the next 2 to 5 weeks. So while that was obviously a shock to the system and it put us all in high gear, I was actually on my second week on the job at Technicolor when that happened. It did certainly bring us forward and certainly jump-started many of those initiatives, etc. Especially jump-started them with the clients and with the projects, whereas some of those conversations might have been a lot more difficult around security. I think that we have been able to prove that we can deploy something at scale that is still secure, and that really is going back to the collaboration. That is probably the most important part of what we do, right? So how can we make sure that the tools are actually serving that collaboration purpose, and they are enabling those creative iterations and making them faster and more more complete or more fruitful, because it is those creative iterations that actually make a project great, right? It's being able to interact. And so I think that anything that removes that mediation, anything that removes a layer between the creative intent and the tools that we have to realize it, anything that makes things more intuitive, anything that frees up the path to that creation is what I will see and what we will point towards the next generation of technology. But I think that all of the common themes across all of the various technologies is that it helps remove the layers, and increase the immediacy between that creative intent and the realization, right? So if we can iterate, collaborate, exchange ideas in a way that is more unmediated, more direct, we are in a better place for that producing a better collaborative art form, right? And I think that is very much the goal. We can all of those hints are there, and all of those elements are already happening and were already happening. Some of them are being accelerated, some of them are continuing steadily, but I do think that they all have this common element in place. And to be perfectly fair, we can go probably a little bit deeper, but there are some aspects that being apart, since you were referencing the COVID response, etc., has made certainly worse, right? So there are parts of human collaboration that would be much better if we were able to be in the same room and discussing things around a whiteboard or something like that. But it certainly has accelerated and enabled some workflows that were not thinkable of before.
Seb, there are many streams that we've seen in the visual effects world, large studios, creating proprietary software, wanting to have a strategic advantage by having proprietary tools, a bespoke pipeline, and around the kind of themes that they matured into, right? Someone was doing it for sci-fi, someone was doing it for creatures, someone was doing it for different types of specialization. And then I think the diversity of visual effects just made people just embrace more and more themes. So how do you see this moving forward? I know that, for example, in the library that today you had, there are very, very amazing proprietary tools for explosion and water and crowds and stuff like that, right? So do you, and on the other hand, we are also seeing the community of open source and people, sharing in a different world. And I think the technologies that are moving in both of these directions. So there are many people on this call that actually belong to the development of tools, the technology community. Some are more from the conventional studios like ours in various formats. So where do you see this moving? Is it moving along parallel lines? Is it converging? Is it moving further apart? And how do you see that whole dynamic?
Yeah, I think certainly I see many of these movements as being part of a broader industrialization that our industry is going through. I think I mentioned something along this in when the connection had dropped, but I obviously I'm happy to repeat it. I think that there are many of the common effects, or many of the effects that were historically complicated, are becoming easier and easier, right? And much more available in terms of commodity tools, or even at performance levels that were unthinkable a decade ago, right? And the trend is clear, and I think that we are reacting or driving it, however you want to see it, as an industry, also throughout the use of open source, as you said. So we are certainly standardizing onto more and more file formats, but also tool sets and workflows. And this is, again, part of a broader industrialization movement that you can see as a consolidation, but also as a convergence on the adoption of certain tools. While many of the effects that again were difficult 10 years ago or incredibly hard are becoming commodity, we still want to push the boundaries, right? And we still want to increase the scale at which we are able to operate, the amount of shots that a facility like MPC Film can push out in a year like obviously before COVID in or 2019 is still outstanding, right? And so we want to be able to deliver at scale while keeping the very clear main objective of servicing the creative intent. This is all we do. The making sure that our tools and our contribution to the collaborative craft of filmmaking and the everything, all the infrastructure that we put in place around things serves to improve the creative output of the entire crew as filmmakers, right? And so I do think that there is that this industrialization brings ease to some processes, and at the same time we want to continue innovating, and I see innovation on two separate axes, right? On one side, doing the same thing we did last year, only 10 times better or faster, and on the other side, doing something that distinguishes us and that pushes the boundaries a little bit more.
Is there invention on the side of innovation, or is it more innovation that you see? I mean, is there an appetite today in the world for people that just want to do something completely different? Because innovation is taking things that you already have and you make a new formula, a new mix, a new code, and you make it, as you said, bigger, better, faster, simpler, and more available. But do you see in this period something that's really game changing in a sense?
Well, like most innovation, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So now you have things that are certainly there are certainly compounding the value that has been built or the technology that has been built until now. And it is much more difficult today to make a groundbreaking discovery or something that that changes things radically. Yet we are still seeing it, right? And we're seeing it specifically in areas like machine learning that we were mentioning earlier. Hopefully this time my computer will take it a little bit less personally and not cut my internet connection. But I think that there is there are advancements there that are still very much blue sky and that are going to be very unpredictable or very, very surprising into where they're going to take us, right? And those areas in particular are the ones that will be exciting to implement and to bring into a pipeline to say, this is how can they be leveraged to serve at scale, and can they be leveraged in order to do the entire filmmaking process better.
So I think this is a nice lead-in, Seb, to what's really topical around us right now, which is the whole area of immersive storytelling, right? It's no new news, but there's so much new news within it, and I think it's driven by the availability of tool sets and software and devices, but the game engine technology, which is I think now becoming more ubiquitous in all kinds of live action production, even routinely, it's leading us down the pathways to different ways of interpreting the immersive formats, right, in TV and film. And where do you see this maturation? Where do you see, when you talked about the industrialization of other tool sets, for example, right? How do you see this building out. I mean, it's helped for people to see the movie before the movie, for example, the pre-visualization of an entire, it happened, we've talked about it on various forums in lots of parts of the world, including India, for when The Lion King came out, right? And how that was so different because it was inside Genesis and the tool set there. And I know every studio is kind of playing with their own versions of, using the immersive for the new virtual world. So how do you see that panning out for entities, for projects, and for smaller companies that don't have the wherewithal to create that huge dynamic?
Well, certainly, the availability of game engines has lowered that barrier of entry dramatically, right? So it is very much something that is now accessible to an individual, a student, even at home, wanting to try things with a very limited investment, and that is a fantastic news, I think, in general for the content creation industry, because we will get a lot more ideas and people and talents and that will be bringing new blood or new energy into the content, right? And so definitely is a huge advantage that way. There is, like any new technology and like any new medium, you talked specifically about immersive technologies. They have multiple applications, right? And so you can see them as their own target, their own medium, their own their own destination in per se. And I do think that they deserve to be treated. My previous job was exactly around that. They deserve to be treated as a medium of their own, right? And so as one where we still need to develop a language and an understanding of the perception and the elicit how do we elicit new emotions in the audience through the use of immersive media. They can also be used as an instrument, as a tool in the production of more traditional media, and that's I think what you were referring more to, and their use and their usefulness is actually still very much being defined, right? And the biggest element of it is still the fact that they allow a different mode of collaboration. They allow a collaboration in which we remove the abstraction of a sketch that a director might do, or the discussion between the art director and the cinematographer or the director, etc., to a very practical interaction with an environment that feels physical, even though it isn't, right? And so that removes that mediation of saying, this is what I mean, and there's an abstraction in the output and an abstraction in the input on the other side for the other person, and those two abstractions might become some inertia or some friction to that unmediated communication. And so that is certainly great. There is still a little bit of understanding to be had, and some discussions to be had, because and to an extent some concerns. Directors might feel that they have to now be locked into choices that they have to do them earlier, and they cannot find the happy accidents, etc. Whereas I think that it is our role as technicians, as filmmakers, applying technology to dispel that, and to say that you are actually providing a way to explore those creative opportunities, to challenge some assumptions, to test things in a much easier and faster way, and that it doesn't remove necessarily that ability. Of course, every production is different, and there will be limitations imposed later on. But the idea is that there is a less mediated creative exploration, and a creative exploration that can happen earlier, and hence leaving more time for the refinement successively. And so I think that it is overall a big win, and it is a big advantage, and something that I'm mostly excited for the generation of filmmakers that will have been born or natively interacted with this side of tools since a very early age, and that really don't see the tool completely disappears, and they just bring their creativity to play. And I think we've started seeing that in some of the more recent productions, and that is a very exciting prospect.
Yeah, I think it just leads into the question that I actually had in mind. A lot of our colleagues, deal with in newer emerging markets, right? We are this platform is here in India, and we see a lot of India, as you know, is a huge filmmaking country. The live action environment, film and television is. You hit a tennis ball very hard, and it'll end up in a production that's happening for movies and television, right? So, how do you see conventional filmmakers who are tried and tested and they've done so well in their journey so far? They've got hit films, blockbusters. They're used to working a certain way. Even if we see VFX, and you've seen this, over the last couple of decades, there is a very different dynamic between the responsibilities of the director, the choreographer, the DOP, and the visual effects supervisor. And very often in large scale productions like we are in, the director and the studio has their own visual effects supervisor, and the production company or the production studio like ours has their own visual effects supervisor. There's a very nice collaboration there. There's a lot of things happening in that. And that's changed the mix, right? Because otherwise, go back 30 years, it was the director, the captain of the ship, everyone around him was like just listening to what he said and shooting the film as he went along. But all of this has changed it. So how do you see that? I mean, you touched upon the fact that young people will embrace it and not even see these tools. But how do we introduce this to the established filmmaking community? I know COVID helps us because we tell some people that they can't bring large crews, so it's safe on set to go with green screens, and so that's the question one. And I'll follow up with my second because it leads nicely. Now we're in the world of mocap, and we're in the world of LED walls and stuff like that. You've been playing with light stages and digital humans for many years. So first, how do we get new people to embrace these new tools? And then where did you see what was coming when you played with all this technology 10, 15 years back, and where is it landed up, and is it ahead of your expectation, and where do you see it going? So I just want to touch upon those together if possible.
Yeah. So, well, I think that the best way to convince people, I don't know that we want to convince people, but the best argument to it is where you see the usefulness, right? It used to be that the director had a number of individual conversations almost stacked in a line, right? And the yes, it was a very collaborative endeavor, but the contribution of each of the crafts was to a certain extent locked in a timeline, right? And so it started and ended. And already 20 years ago, when we started seeing digital intermediate and when we started seeing the full digitalization of the entire film and the color process being done digitally, and at the end with enabling a lot more control, you start seeing that even the DP that might have already moved to the next production once the shooting is over, it wants and actually stays along for the longest for the longer run. And I think that is where broadening the extent and the times and how much each of the contributing crafts brings is so that is the real advantage to the production. And so showing that advantage that doesn't have to go necessarily all the way to LED screens or is where whatever the intent, the creative intent from the director, I think that we are in a position where there are now some of these digital tools that will bring an advantage, and the workflows are inherently creative, inherently collaborative, and much more fluid through the use of these digital technologies. That I think that we're now having the to a certain extent the opposite problem of saying that there's a lot of interest, and now we need to in some cases educate on what's possible and what seems very easy when you see YouTube videos, and it might have a little bit more complexity when you want to do it at scale or at a really professional level. So I do think that there's a undeniable usefulness today, and it's more a matter of engaging in a dialogue and understanding what the intent is from anybody really that is a player in this industry. The second question about the digital humans and where we stand, certainly making convincing, believable digital humans has been the holy grail of computer graphics since I've been around, and it is still the holy grail, meaning that we can do it. We have demonstrated that we can do it. It's still incredibly hard, and it's still very hard to make it work 100% of the time, right? So there is still a significant amount of work there. However, there is plenty of expertise, and there are many examples where it has been done successfully, and where things continue to move and to impress, including in real-time applications, right, that we've seen very recently, and we continuously see improving on a day-by-day basis. So I do believe that in the just like for many of the other technologies, there's still a certain amount of complexity to be abstracted away and hidden away, but I do see in our future a place or a time where it will be more commoditized, and it will be simpler and simpler, and accessible to many more people creatively, right? It is already like that in many cases for less professional applications. At a professional level, it's still difficult, but it is coming, and it's exciting to see. It also poses the question on a broader level onto what we can believe, right? So there has been examples even in our own production where if we can fool the eye, it is very, very hard to say, okay, what was that interview real or not? But that's a broader and much different question.
I wanted to, just before we have just 5 minutes to wrap up, I had a couple of things I didn't want to leave without touching on. One of them was, you have the view to the world through the VES Awards and being on the jury and talking with people, in the technology forums and so on. So what comes out of this? Is it just looking at what's happening, or does it inform young people what they should be pursuing? Is there a way to tell young people who are tuned into us, hundreds and thousands of students just here in our country and many places in the world, not knowing, visual effects, VFX is a catch-all phrase, but where do they pursue their future? How should they hone their aptitude and skill in a way that will not be irrelevant 5 years from now because of the industrialization that we talked about, and the nature of leaders like yourself whose goal is to simplify? And therefore, what will that advice be, as much as we can tell, in 2021?
So yeah, I definitely think and believe, and I've been active in the industry through volunteering. You mentioning the VS Technology Committee that I chair, and some of the judging for the Academy SciTech Awards, etc. I think that it is important for us to recognize and represent more than just what we do in our day-to-day professional lives, right? And I think that the fact that there is a tech committee. Oh, hello! I am having my.
We talked about what youngsters should learn, and then here's someone that's coming up to be the next.
That hasn't learned that when Daddy is in a call, we shouldn't
all
come
right.
up.
That's
I
very
guess
cool.
I needed hand sanitizer. She brought it up.
Oh, that's very nice. That's fantastic. Yeah.
I do believe that we have the responsibility of passing the baton, right? And we have the responsibility of saying when, where, and when we can that this is the road that we took, and this is the mistakes that we made along the line, and this is how we would think that you want to avoid them, right? And I think that it is important also to think and to represent, especially as you were saying in this industrialization, etc., that there are multiple sides, multiple facets, multiple scales in our industry. There are smaller, there are obviously large entities like Technicolor, and there are much smaller companies, individuals, freelancers, etc., that are still out there. The advice is always the same, right? And it is that I don't want to say the tried and true follow your passion, but rather that keep focusing on the things that are actually key and important. We said that the fact that there is collaboration is an essential part of the way we operate. The fact that there is the creative intent needs to be at the center. It's easy sometimes to get lost into the technicalities of the technology and trying to improve into a specific direction that might seem the most fruitful, or where there is the delivery, and sometimes that makes us look down and down into the rabbit hole and lose the vision onto where really we should be aiming, which is how does this impact the creative intent. Every single person that works on one of these productions is and should be thinking as a filmmaker, right? And because this is what we're doing, we're making films. Even when we're doing interactive experiences for an advertising project or a short, whatever level we operate, we're still telling stories, which is probably the most fundamental human characteristics. And we're telling stories, and that's where where our aim and our focus should be and stay, even when we do it through a very sophisticated, narrow slither of a piece of technology that is many layers removed from the director.
Seb, I think we look to leaders like yourself to continue to shine a light in the direction of where we're headed as an industry. It's a remarkable time. These 2 days at the VAM are going to be a great exploration of people that have worked in the new streaming episodic world, people that have come in from the large international productions, the birth of significant inroads that visual effects has made into the storytelling amongst the regional languages and the national, the language of Bollywood, if you like. And I think it's amazing to maybe in the next time around to talk about how stylistically the different demands, because as you correctly said, everything comes from the solutions we go to create. Every project requires its own set of solutions, right? Right from the initial setup, and I think it's going to be an amazing few years ahead. We hope to have the chance to continue to engage with you, hopefully even in person the next time around.
Yes.
But on behalf of VAM, it's my great pleasure to thank you for this sharing of your journey of what's ahead of us, and you make it sound. I mean, you've talked of deep scientific material in a way that I think even your daughter would be able to understand it. So thank you for making that a wonderful start to our event, and have a wonderful day. And I hope you have good weather.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. We do have a beautiful blue sky in front of us, but the temperature outside is certainly not what I would have encountered had I been there in person with all of you in India. I remember when I came to this event in 2007, it was a much more pleasant weather than what we have right now in Montreal. But nevertheless, this is what these days bring to us, and we have to problem solve and continue to do what we do in the best way possible. So again, thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you very much, Seb.
Until next time.
Have a great day ahead of you. Cheers and bye bye for now.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye bye.
Bye.